Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I thank those colleagues who signed my motion in November, one which has been rather overtaken by the events it predicted. And thank you to all those who took part in the debate, highlighting concerns about the A9 and others' routes in my region and in their own areas. My motion recognised that work on the A9 was clearly not on schedule, and it noted calls for the Scottish Government to provide an updated and achievable timetable to be presented to Parliament as soon as possible. And that was prescient, given that on the 8th of February, Scotland's worst-kept secret was finally revealed, that the SNP's promise to dual the A9 in its entirety between Perth and Inverness by 2025 would not be achieved. It was a surprise to no one, not to those of us who, as politicians and as road users, have been campaigning for dualling for more than a decade, not to the communities that live alongside the route and who rely on it as they go about their daily lives, not to the businesses for which the A9 is a vital link from and to the Highlands and Islands, and certainly not to the Scottish Government who, even though they may have repeatedly given the impression otherwise, knew this project was badly off track and years behind where it should be. Only weeks after that announcement, the Scottish Conservatives used our party business to bring ministers to this chamber to answer more questions on why this project has gone so badly wrong, and why, when it was clear to all that the deadline was not going to be met, ministers kept pretending all was fine. And that debate was a chance for Parliament to show its anger that the date would be missed, and for MSPs from across the Highlands and Islands and from all parties to stand up for their constituents and send a clear and unified message to the Scottish Government that our constituents were angry too. They wanted answers, and that there should be no more excuses and no more delays. But that didn't happen, because during the debate not one Highlands and Islands MSP from either the SNP or the Greens came along. And when it came to voting, every one of them, bar Fergus Ewing, who I know had a valid reason to miss the debate, every one bar Fergus Ewing followed their whip and voted down any criticism of the Scottish Government for the A9 debacle. It was shameful. I'm pleased to see Mr Ewing here today, and I look forward to his contribution later, and I know that there are other MSPs from the region attending today. Presiding Officer, in that Conservative debate on the 22nd, we finally learned when Scottish ministers had first been told that the 2025 target was not going to be met. Following an intervention, Jenny Gilruth told me that it was late December 2022. Then, after having appeared to have consulted with the Deputy First Minister, Ms Gilruth raised a point of order to put on record that it was actually on the 7th of December when ministers were first made aware. That clarity was welcome, although it did take another 3 months for the Transport Minister to inform Parliament of this. However, we still don't know when Transport Scotland finally made the call that the target date would be missed. In a written response I received conveniently just this afternoon, the Minister would say only late December. We still don't know when doubts were first raised within the Government and within Transport Scotland over whether that date could be delivered. We still don't know when contractors or consultants working on the project first raised concerns that the project might not be completed on time. And we don't even know how many years the project is behind. And this is why, in our motion, in our debate, the Scottish Conservatives call for ministers to commit Transport Scotland to publishing a quarterly update, setting out progress against published targets. Perhaps the Transport Minister will give that commitment today. But I would like to briefly return to that 7th of December date for when ministers were first told that dualling by 2025 was not achievable. Because on the 15th of December last year, 8 days after Jenny Gilruth said ministers had been informed that dualling wouldn't be completed as promised, the Deputy First Minister, in questions during his budget statement to this Parliament, told me, in direct response to my question on the A9 dualling, and I quote, "The Government's position on the completion of the dualling of the A9 remains intact." So if the Minister stands by that 7th of December date she has given, what does she think is more likely? That on a key manifesto commitment, one with serious financial implications as Mr Swinney prepared and presented his budget, and as an MSP whose constituency the A9 runs through, he had been kept out of the loop and wasn't aware the 2025 date had been shelved, or that the Deputy First Minister did know, and so may have misled this Parliament. Presiding Officer, as I spoke of in the last debate on the A9, there are many reasons the road needs to be dualled. They're economic, they're social, they're about connecting our communities and our regions. but we must never underestimate the safety benefits of dualling the route. As Inspector Greg Burns of Tayside's Road Policing Unit said only last week, if we had a dual carriageway section all the way up, it would certainly reduce the likelihood of fatalities there. I drove down the route on Sunday, and as 2 police cars with blue lights sped past me, it's hard to escape that thick dread that another family may be getting a knock on the door from a police officer. Too many lives have already been lost, and every month of delay risks more. I'd like to close by taking this opportunity to thank those whose job it is to respond to incidents on the A9 and other roads, including local police, paramedics and firefighters. And to thank all those who, like us on these benches and on benches across this chamber, will continue to fight for the dualling to be completed as soon as possible, and particularly the work of those in the Dual the A9 Action Group. I'm sure we can all agree with one simple message for this government. It's one I've made before in this chamber. No more delays, no more excuses. Get the A9 dualled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halcro Johnston. We now move